This podcast is for general informational purposes only and represents the individual opinions of Dr. Dmitry Bick, Dr. Stefan de Graaf, Dr. Suzanne Mignon, and the guests. It does not constitute the practice of medicine or other professional healthcare services and should not be taken as medical advice or an establishment of standard of care. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The content on this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, but more importantly, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Reviews not only help us grow listeners, but also help us grow as a show, improve our content, and make us better.
So we're going to try to tough it out today because our resident young-minded person is out taking advantage of our open vacation policy again. But our resident young person is here. And I discovered a video this week that I found on, I guess it was Instagram. And this is an audio medium, so you guys are not going to be able to see this, even though I'm going to play it. So I'm going to describe it to the people that can't see it, and then I'm going to play it. This is a video of a mother, or a person that is supposed to be the mother, talking to a child who looks to be about 11, maybe 12 years old. And there's a voiceover of a man that's doing the voice for both of them, having this conversation back and forth. And the caption says, "Deep convos with my middle schooler."
So how have the vibes been lately? Low key? Off. Go off, King. I just feel like life's been mad cringe lately. Like instead of taking W's, I'm taking L's. And how's your Riz? Mid. No cap? On God. It's giving depression. Dead ass? Dead ass. Facts. That's facts. No printer. Period.
I have no idea what was said.
So
and out of us two, I should be the one to know, right?
Right? So
No
I'm
idea.
asking you to explain to me what half of that was.
This video just aged me in a second. I feel so old.
Okay,
I'm not even
so
past 40. I'm not even past 40. It's ridiculous.
And you've never felt older.
Jesus, why does English language has to change so fast? I don't
It's
know,
not the
man.
English language, it's children. It's children.
It's ridiculous. Is that what it's teaching in school now? That's ridiculous.
I guess. Now, in fairness, we do know what no cap means because we did that last week,
Right.
right?
We know Riz.
We know Riz because we've done that in the past too.
We know facts.
So, do we know facts?
Facts. We do know facts. Facts.
Okay. I mean, we
Yeah,
haven't
that's
done
right.
it, but I assume that we can do facts. But the reason I played that video, first of all, what is no printer? What does that
I
mean?
don't know. I have no idea.
I have no idea what that means.
Clue. I have no clue at all.
So the reason I played that is because we're going to do our Youth Speak segment, but the term that we're doing this week isn't even in that
Yeah.
video.
You know, I now know what I want for Christmas. I want
translator?
the entire lexicon of, I don't know, youth speak, you know?
I'm not going to disagree with you. Like,
Maybe I'll get it on Amazon. There's got to be something like, you know, like those pocket translator or pocket lexicon or pocket, you know, when you travel for different country. Yeah, I'll look it up because this is nuts.
the reason was because we were going to do this segment that we usually do,
Generation X explains youth speak?
but the term this week is not in that video. The term this week is drip.
Oh,
And
I think I
I
know this one.
discovered this term from the son that you want to call right now, because he said that he had drip.
I have drip right now. If you can see how I sound so nasally, I have drip. My nose is really, I have a runny nose. Is that drip?
Yeah, and Suzanne is in here because apparently she has a drip too. But I don't
drip.
think it's a drip. I think it's just drip.
I got drip. So that's what it means? Like when you stuff your nose or like.
So according to Urban Dictionary, it means very swag and cool.
Yeah.
Like, I got drip.
I don't sound neither swag or cool right now.
No. and it's unfortunate that she's not here because I think she could relate to this, but we went to see the new Trolls movie, yesterday. And I realized that two things. One, I'm not sufficiently young enough to understand about 40% of that movie. And I wasn't nearly high enough. I needed to be completely stoned, like I needed to take like a gummy before that movie, because whoever produced and directed that movie was totally on like psilocybin or some type of marijuana, because that movie is wow. Like if you want to trip, man, take a gummy and go watch Trolls. And it doesn't matter if you have kids or not. You won't look weird because you're going to be totally stoned and you won't even notice that people are staring at you. The theater is empty anyway, but it was like way psychedelic, man. Marie and I were looking at each other like we're just not high enough to watch this movie. And it was full of these kinds of like,
your kids loved
things.
Your kids loved it?
Oh, my kids loved it, of course. And I got to say, it's not a bad movie. Like, it was for the kids, right? So it's got all the kid stuff, but it had enough, old people jokes that keeps people like me, old people, entertained. So it was fine. But what I realized was about 20 minutes into it that we needed way more than just popcorn and candy. Like that needed to be, they should have asked us if we want, instead of we want butter, do we want like a little like edible syrup on it? Because it was trippy. I mean,
should have asked you, do you want candy or do you want candy?
Candy, yeah. We know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But drip was in that movie. They used a lot of those terms that we just heard in this video. We're gonna keep doing this segment because I need to speak young, but I just don't know how to do it yet. And I'm upset because you can't help me.
Yeah, you know what? We'll have to find somebody much younger than 35 to translate that. Much younger.
Much younger.
More like maybe 20 years younger. 20 years younger.
Yes. But and we'll bring them in to help us translate this.
So how have the vibes been lately? Low key? Off. Go off, King. I just feel like life's been mad cringe lately. Like instead of taking W's, I'm taking L's. And how's your Riz? Mid. No cap? On God. It's giving depression. Dead ass? Dead ass. Facts. That's facts. No printer. Period.
All right, let's do the healthcare horror stat of the week.
America has the greatest health care in the world.
Deductibles, drug tiers, PAs, and copay. But you can get an MRI today for the low price of just $2,000. America, yay!
All right, so this isn't exactly a stat this week, but this is a story. These things that are going on with the insurance companies are an enormous problem.
Oh my God, look at me. Yeah.
So here's the story. According to statnews.com, a class action suit filed on behalf of deceased patients who had a United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plan and their families by the California-based Clarkson law firm follows the publication of a stat investigation Tuesday. The investigation, cited by the lawsuit found United Health pressured medical employees to follow an algorithm which predicts a patient's length of stay to issue payment denials to people with Medicare Advantage plans. Internal documents revealed that managers within the company set a goal for clinical employees to keep patients' rehab stays within 1% of the days projected by the algorithm. The lawsuit, filed in the U.S. District Court of Minnesota, accuses United Health and its subsidiary Navi Health of using the computer algorithm to, quote, systemically deny claims, unquote, of Medicare beneficiaries struggling to recover from debilitating illnesses in nursing homes. The lawsuit alleges that United Health knew the algorithm had an extremely high error rate and that it denied patients' claims, knowing that only a tiny percentage, 0.2%, would file appeals to try to overturn the insurer's decision. The complaint alleges the algorithm, dubbed MHToD, has a 90% error rate, basing that calculation on the percentage of payment denials reversed through internal appeals process or administrative law judge rulings. Quote, the fraudulent scheme affords defendants a clear financial windfall in the form of policy premiums without having to pay for promised care, unquote, the complaint alleges. Quote, the elderly are primarily kicked out of care facilities nationwide or forced to deplete family savings to continue receiving necessary care, all because an artificial intelligence model disagrees with their real-life doctor's recommendations.
That's wild. That's wild. That's why
we always knew this was happening. Though,
yeah,
right?
so that's why it trickles down to hospital administration being hard on admission criteria. You know, I work in a psychiatric unit. It's very, very hard to convince administration to let me admit somebody that has a certain insurance, because they've had, I'm not gonna cite anyone, but they have experience with certain insurances, and they'll tell me this insurance, you know, they don't pay, you know, at the end of the year. They'll say yes, they'll approve a single case agreement, but at the end of the day, they won't pay. So the hospital, in turn, because they have to watch the bottom line, they have to be responsible with their fiscal decision, they'll start, you know, not accepting patient because they cannot trust the insurance company to pay. You know, it's a huge problem, and it interferes with patient care. You know, it's
yeah, and they've been called out. This investigation showed that they're not only doing this stuff, but they're actually doing it on purpose. Like, their documents say, we're going to reject you. And any doctor who, you know, patients know this too, but the doctors are on the end of the paperwork. And any doctor who has filled out a prior authorization for medication or any other procedure knows that they can predict almost that they're going to get a rejection based on,
yeah.
It doesn't matter what you put in there. So there was one particular insurance company, and I'm not going to name them. I sent out a prescription for Lexapro, generic Lexapro, escitalopram.
Right.
And the insurance made me fill out a prior authorization for that. And then they rejected it. Generic Lexapro that cost $15. The insurance company refused to pay for it.
Yeah. It's a huge problem.
I had another prior authorization that I did, and it was for brand name medicine. And I wrote down the generic alternatives that they failed.
Right.
Three generic alternatives. I got a response that said, this medication is being rejected because they didn't fail two of the three things that I wrote down on the PA as failures. Same insurance company, by the way. And so I dropped that insurance company because they're automatic denials.
Right.
They don't even bother
review the case on that. Yeah.
Because they know that most people are not going to do the appeal, because the appeal process is an enormous pain in the ass.
Yeah, right.
It's ridiculous amounts of paperwork. Most doctors don't have the staff for it
all the time.
Or they don't have the time to do it, so they get a staff to do it. But if you have 1,000 patients and every single one of them needs a PA for every single procedure that you're doing, that staff member is going to be overwhelmed.
You know, that's where the American health system is so you know, distorted and corrupt. You know, a patient goes to his doctor, the doctor who, you know, we trust the doctor, have done the studies, they have had experience, they know which medication the patient should be prescribed. And fair enough, they failed one, second, third trial, And the insurance company has somebody on the desk review an algorithm dismissing the doctor's clinical decision. Meanwhile, the patient might be suicidal, might be, I don't know what, even in medical issues, might be having whatever symptoms they may having. And somebody behind the desk has not seen the patient, has not touched the patient, has not evaluated the patient, is saying, no, this medication would not be covered. Try this one instead. You know,
It's even worse than that, because if you do end up filing an appeal, you get to the medical director, the quote, I'm using air quotes, medical director, who is
Right.
an MD, but you talk to them and they are a rubber stamp for the
Right.
policy. So I have had interactions as a resident with these people, because as a resident, you need to learn how to do these appeals. And so you get on the phone with this guy and you're like, here's all the stuff that's going on. And they say, well, why can't you do it in this time? And I'm like, you're a doctor. You know I'm right. What's your problem? And once you pin them down like that, the answer is always, well, this is our policy. And I'm like, yes, but it's not your policy as a doctor. It's someone telling you to recite this information. Why don't you as a doctor make a clinical decision, which isn't that the point of your job? And the response is always, well, I can't because this is the policy.
This is a favorite, the so-called peer-to-peer review, right? And then
that's right.
The other peer is hired for a desk job, which is fine. You know, I don't want to dismiss their job, but if we have a conversation, which I welcome the conversation, if it's a clinical conversation, forget about algorithm, forget about your insurance policies. Let's focus on clinical, a debate. We will find out that the decision that has to be made does not have to include your insurance policy. If you center the conversation on the patient, don't tell me about policy, because you already drift away from the clinical case, right? It's just ridiculous, Yeah,
it's not a peer-to-peer, because a peer-to-peer would actually be two doctors talking to each other, but it's really not that. It's a doctor, the clinician that's seeing the patient, talking to the speaker for a guy above him, the corporate guy above him, who is probably not even the guy that wrote the policy, who's just a middle manager. And that guy is the guy you're speaking to, the doctor you're speaking to, is a doctor, an MD, just so they can give some sort of lip service to it's an actual peer-to-peer, when it's not that at all. It's just a guy who's a mouthpiece for the corporation.
Most of these people, when I've had to talk to them, they're not really interested in the patient. They're interested in not covering the medication. Because if I had a conversation with a doctor, and I'll be fair. If I had done 20 of them, I've had maybe 2 or 3 conversations with doctors working for an insurance company. I've had instances where they agree with me. I've had it. There's some of them are genuine.
Yeah.
Some of them are like, okay, I understand what you're saying. I understand now that you explain it.
But
I understand what you're saying. I agree with you. But whatever.
But policy. Steph, did you see the story about the hockey player that got his throat slashed?
I read the story. I watched the video so many times, and I still don't understand why he's going that way. And I before we go into it, I remember, I forgot which year that already happened in the NHL. I'll look it up twice. That a skate blade cut somebody's neck. There's one that was very gruesome, was all blood everywhere, but they survived. It may happen that one case might end up this way. It may happen.
Right. So if you haven't seen the video, I don't suggest that you go see it. It's not pretty. It's actually kind of gruesome, to be honest with you. But anyway, the story is that Adam Johnson, and by the way, who knew that England had a hockey league? I didn't know that they did have that, but this happened in England. Adam Johnson, who was a prospect for the Pittsburgh Penguins at one time, was coming across the blue line in his zone, I believe, and Matt Petgrave, what it looks like is he tried to throw a hip check that he missed. And because he missed it, his body sort of flung in the air and his feet flung in the air, and it hit Adam Johnson in the throat. Now, he did skate off the ice, but then he ended up dying later on in the hospital because of that. But the reason we're bringing this up is because Matt Petgrave was recently arrested for that and charged with manslaughter. And so my question here is, should he have been?
No, I mean, I would be interested to know if following this, every sports league would have the players sign a waiver, because that's where it's going. If you can have an accidental, unfortunate accident, that's exactly what it was, an unfortunate accident. You skating with blades, it could have been a finger chopped off. What would that be like? Battery? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So the manslaughter definition is the killing of a person without malice or forethought. So, in other words, circumstantial. Now, by that definition, yeah, that is what happened. But you kind of have to take into account intent in the sense
motive,
that they were being reckless. In other words, someone could get charged with manslaughter for driving drunk and killing someone. They didn't get in the car with the intention of killing someone, but they got in the car, they got in a weapon, and they used it in a way that they should have known better, essentially.
Right.
And here we are, two doctors talking about law again, 2 weeks in a row. But so what you're claiming here, as I understand it, is that he flung his feet up in the air so recklessly that he couldn't have foreseen, that he should have been able to foresee that flinging his feet up in the air like that could have caused the death of another person or the injury of another person.
Let's play the scenario that I don't even know. I'm just going to play a scenario that he had some conflict with the player that passed away. He had some conflict. He had been looking for ways to kill him. Even with that premise, even with that, how impossible would it be to time it in that exact millisecond, that exact centimeters, that exact sheer of force to actually hit him on the neck and end up cutting his jugular? It doesn't even make sense, right? So, let alone
he doesn't have to have that intent.
Right.
But I agree with what you're saying is, even if he did have that intent,
he wouldn't be able to do it.
The idea that he could do it that way
so
is such low odds.
Yeah.
Again, I don't understand why. I don't think we should be charging athletic players in the moment of sports with crime, because if you're going to do that, then every single hit that results in an injury in football is tantamount to assault and battery.
Right. I mean, I can be fair. I can be fair in saying maybe even if you take it on a case-by-case basis, you can actually, evaluate if there was intent or not. I'll pose the example of what is it? Panic at the Palace, whatever it is. What's the name of the
Malice at the Palace? The fight with
the fight. So
Detroit.
The game was no longer ongoing. The game had stopped, and the brawl, erupted on the floor. In the sense, there was no game anymore. There's no sports anymore because it stopped. The whistle stopped, and then they got charged for assaulting fans and whatnot. That's off the away from the sports. Now, in this instant, if it was their halftime, for example, or the skating off the rink, and then Matt Petgrave went and threw his skate at the head of the player and ended up injuring him and later on died, that would be even murder. That would be intentional because it's not part of the game. It's off, it's out of the quarter. There's, but within the limits of the game, within the limits of the competition, accident may and possibly will happen. Unfortunately, this won't happen in a death. In all sports, there have been accidents or injuries caused by opposing player. There have been broken bones, have been neck injuries, have been people that end up being quadriplegic, right? Because it happened in the confinement of the game. If you go to the NFL, if you go into boxing, even in boxing, boxers have died with internal cerebral hematomas, right?
Yeah.
After the fight, because as you know, a hematoma may last long before it starts causing symptoms, right? So that's exactly why when somebody is knocked out, if they cannot coordinate their movement, they call the fight so they can go be checked up in the hospital, right? So that is within the confinement of the sport. And if somebody get killed in a boxing match, there's no way they should be charged, right?
I completely agree with that. And to me, the analogy here is Damar Hamlin.
Right.
He didn't die, thankfully.
Well,
he actually did, but they revived him. Right? They revived him.
And he was a hit.
But that would be like charging T. Higgins with manslaughter because he was the one that hit him in the chest. But it was a completely, it was, was it because it was part of the play or he wasn't doing anything reckless? In the course of sports, bad things are going to happen. And in a violent game like football and hockey, things are going to happen. And you can't, you can't account for these kinds of things from a criminal standpoint because these things are fly in the air once in a while. It happens in hockey all the time. It just doesn't happen to land in this particular situation. And I don't think we should be charging people.
Right. And I'll go even further. The Mahamlin example, it was an intentional hit. It was I'm going to tackle this guy. That was a hit that was planned as a part of the sporting behavior. The Matt Petgrave incident, I cannot say with confidence that he wanted to swing his leg completely backwards to hit the player behind him. I cannot make that assumption. He happened to hit him, but I don't think the play was to hit him, if you know what I mean. His leg happened to swing that way. The player happened to get contact with the skate, but that wasn't a play that was intentional.
So why do you think they charged him?
I think there's going to be something underneath that we don't know. You'll see the lawyers debate on national TV. You'll see. I think there's more to the story that we don't know.
I have a take. I think it's a racist thing because
why do you say so?
Matt Petgrave is black and Adam Johnson is white.
I'd be interested to say what's the race of the prosecutor. I don't know if that matters, but I don't know. To me, I don't know the details, to be fair. I'll preface, I don't know the details, but it sounds to me that's like a overreaching decision to make. Maybe for popularity, maybe for political gain, to put your name out there as a prosecutor. I don't know. It looks to me so far out of the realm of possibility to actually show somebody in a sporting event just for your name to be mentioned in the next months or year.
Yeah, that's my take is that this is a racist thing because if you look on Twitter, it's very split. There's a faction of people that are calling him a murderer, and it just so happens that there's a associated race with those people. Not all white people, as you can see, but and there's the other side of that, and I don't think anybody really cares about what happened, to be honest. I think it's people see what they want in everything. And a tragedy in a sporting event now has also become politicized and, socially divisive because, of course, it is.
Yeah.
Well, everything is like that nowadays. We did a segment a long time ago. Well, a long time ago. We've been doing this podcast for
a year, almost a year. Oh no, we gotta get to a year. We're starting
February, almost
February.
a year. February, yeah. and I think maybe the third one or the fourth one we did it on bullying. And
Yes.
or no, we did it on trolls. Sorry,
On trolling sports. On
Trolls.
trolling sports. Yeah.
and one of the people we mentioned was Draymond Green. And Draymond went and Draymond this week again and got himself suspended.
Draymond
Did you watch
has
this?
been. Yeah, I did it. Draymond did a Draymond thing again. Yeah, I did see it. It's so, and people say, athletes say that Draymond Green is very smart, and he sounds smart on the realm of, media savvy, business investor, but he looks so. He's a bonehead on the floor. He's a loose cannon. Like, how can you trust this guy as a coach?
He's won 3 championships, man.
Yes, I don't know, man.
You know what I mean? Like,
how can you be so smart and so dumb at the same time?
I think he's that kind of guy who, if he's on your team, he's tough guy, team player guy that you want on your team. And if he's on the other team, he's a punk and everybody hates him. And
I'll go further.
He's dirty, right?
I don't even think. Maybe to an extent before. To me, it sounds like the Warriors are getting fed up with him. They always have to excuse him. Always.
I don't know.
It's every single season. Steve Kerr has to make a comment about Draymond Green.
Well, he did. Steve Kerr actually called him out on this one.
Yes.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, it was a game last week between the Warriors and the Timberwolves. And the Timberwolves are good this year. They're really good. And there was a fight on the court, and Draymond put Rudy Gobert in a chokehold. And
for a few seconds.
Just wouldn't let go, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think they have a beef, right?
The Warriors and the Timberwolves, they want to become a rivalry.
No, the Draymond and Rudy Gobert, don't they have beef?
I'm not sure. So many people don't. A lot of people don't like Gobert. A lot of people don't like.
That's true too. Yeah, a lot of people don't like Rudy Gobert.
Or Green.
I thought they had beef, but he may not have. But yeah, he put him in a chokehold. He got thrown out, and of course, as he's getting thrown out, he's like, "What did I do? I didn't do anything."
Of course,
which is hilarious. In football, there was a fight this weekend too between Washington and the Giants.
A
huge fight on the sidelines. Almost all 22 of the players that were on the field were involved in this fight. And I saw chokeholds, and I saw a helmet go off and fly. Nobody got thrown out of the game. So different context. But yeah, he did his thing, and SNL.
And you got to see it before you got to see it. That was really like in the first few minutes of the game. It was first quarter. The game had just tipped off, and the reaction Draymond Green showed did not. There was no basis for it. The magnitude of the issue was not that big of a deal. It was 2 players that got tangled up. They both grabbed each other's jersey, and that was it. There was no punching. There was no pushing around. Nobody got hit. And here goes Draymond putting somebody in the headlock.
And did you hear what Rudy Gobert said after the game?
Yeah, something like he wasn't that good of a chokehold. Like,
no. He said that Draymond, when Steph Curry doesn't play, because Steph Curry was doing the thing that players do now, where they just take days off because they're tired, like 3 games into the season. So Steph Curry was out that game.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm calling out.
Yeah, Suzanne is taking a what do they call it?
What is it? Load management.
Suzanne is on load management today. That's right. Yeah. So Rudy Gobert said that when Steph Curry doesn't play, Draymond doesn't want to play either, and so he got thrown out on purpose. Because Steph Curry wasn't playing, which I think is a hilarious rub at Draymond. But SNL took a shot at him over the weekend too, in their weekend update. So this is just the beginning of that. So this is from SNL from this past Saturday.
This week, the NBA suspended Golden State Warriors forward Draymond Green 5 games for putting another player in a chokehold. Here to comment is Draymond Green.
Thanks, Kay. I appreciate y'all giving me this platform to publicly apologize.
Okay, so you are sorry.
Hell nah. I can't wait to do it again.
So why are you so angry? I mean, you choked Rudy Gobert for no reason.
I had a reason, all right? Rudy Gobert is a tall Frenchman who's been pissing me off for years. Imagine if you had a 7-foot baguette in your face talking about
7-foot baguette.
There's more to this clip. It's like 3 minutes long, but we're not gonna play the whole thing. So go find it on YouTube.
And I, that's an irony. Ironically, we just talk about racial issues in sports. That would have been a basis, right? Hating on the
making fun of.
I know,
yeah, but everybody seems to find this part funny, probably because Rudy Gobert didn't die.
Right.
Of
course.
But can I just say, no one would have. I don't know that anyone would have an issue if Draymond Green killed someone with him getting charged for manslaughter, because he does this so often that it's like, God, if he had a skate in his hand, the damage he could do with that if he was on skates.
He does it so often that the reprimand that is received over the years, the penalties, the fines, the suspension, he's just proving to the NBA that they are useless. Because what is a penalty or a fine or suspension is for? To tame the behavior, to correct the player behavior, and to avoid further, acting out. Draymond Green has proven time and time again that the league does not know how to correct his behavior. He's going to keep paying fines for nothing.
And he got suspended 5 games for this, but 5 games in an 82-game season when you're going to take load management anyway, like, is that really like... And they said that the reason they gave him so many games was because of recidivism.
Of course.
But dude, 5 games in an 82-game season when he's going to take 10 games off for load management anyway?
It's nothing.
Is this a real kind of deterrent? It's not a deterrent. Like,
no.
Now, granted, look, what did he really do? He didn't do anything like so. He didn't punch him like he did Jordan Poole.
The chocolate was tight. He pulled him back a few feet back for a few seconds.
Okay. Look, I'm not defending
looked bad.
it. I'm just
really
saying.
Bad.
But if he had punched someone like he punched Jordan Poole, and that guy got hurt, for instance, it might have been more. Like I think because it was almost comical.
It was a melee. You could say I'm trying to break it out.
I'm trying to pull him off of my guy. Yeah. So, but I don't think 5 games is going to really make him care. No. And from a psychological standpoint, this is going to be something he's going to brush off and enjoy. And to be honest with you, if I could put someone in a chokehold in my office and get
5 days
suspended and not have to work for 5 days in a row and still get paid the same amount of money that I would get paid if I was working,
no, I don't think
I'd find someone to choke too.
I think he loses money. I think he doesn't play.
I don't think so.
I
don't think so. I think it's a suspension. Is it a suspension with or without pay?
Because I think when they mentioned the suspension for what's his guy, the gun guy, Ja Morant, I think they mentioned it cost him a lot of $1 million, like a lot of money. It's costing Morant a lot of money.
He got it without pay. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's a little bit of deterrent. So, how much does Draymond Green make for 5 games?
And the league the league does say that the fine policy, the money is going to charity. So Draymond Green might say, it's going to charity.
Sure.
It's a good deed.
Yeah. So he makes $153,941 per game. So for 5 games, he's losing out on about $770,000. With his 4-year, $100 million contract is, okay. So I take that back. I wouldn't choke someone so that I can get off of work, but only because it would have been without pay. We didn't talk about the Dolphins at all this week.
How about those Fins? How about the Dolphins, huh? That's exciting.
They were very close to making it a very, very bad loss. But the reason we're doing that is because
they're 7-3 and the first in the AFC East. That's the reason.
And because we got our mental health tip of the day from a Dolphin. So mental health tip of the day time.
Day full of hiccups? Need a shake-up? Listen up. It's the Psych Effect Podcast Mental Health Tip of the Day.
All right, our mental health tip of the day comes from our quarterback. That's my quarterback.
Our quarterback. QB.
Tua Tagovailoa. I hope I pronounced that right. I probably did not. Tagovailoa. Yeah. That's how you pronounce it. That's awful.
I don't know.
I'm going to get that right because he's my quarterback. Anyway, the mental health tip of the day comes from him. He was asked in the post-game interview, it sounds like you're hard on yourself. How do you balance being hard on yourself and grace? And here is the answer.
I have you know, a standard for myself, and I take pride in doing my job. And for me, if I'm not doing my job to the best of my abilities, you know, I shouldn't be out there, you know, doing it. And I'm sure each and every one of you here would feel the same within your profession. And so it's not me being super hard or me not extending grace to myself. It's just understanding, like, you know, you can do better. And it's to a place where I'm not beating myself up as much as I probably would have my rookie year or my second year. So that's what I would say. And I'm not blind to the mistakes that I've made, but it's not more so that I'm hard on myself. It's more so I know my expectation and the standard of what I can do, and it can be better, and I want it to be better. And that's what it really is. It's being real with yourself.
I love it.
Being real with yourself is great, because that's a very important thing. People looking at themselves, being real with themselves, and deciding that they can do better if they have to do better. And we get a lot of people that come into our office and complain about other people treating them poorly, which may be true.
Where is your ownership in that?
Unless it's an abuse situation, where is your role in it?
Right.
And the slights that you think people have against you, and to be real with yourself and look at yourself, because that's where change starts. Because if you lie to yourself, then there's really not a lot of hope for any kind of change.
And I think what I also gathered in what he was saying is that he didn't say the word, but it seems to me that he was talking about balance. You can be graceful to yourself, but you can also be not hard on yourself, but you can also expect better from yourself. Not being hard doesn't mean be nonchalant, being mediocre, you know, doesn't mean giving poor effort in what you're doing, you know, and the flip of the coin, you shouldn't beat yourself up, right? So it's finding that right balance where you're not mediocre at what you're doing, but you're also not too harsh on yourself, and you give yourself grace at the same time.
Excellent. It seems like today we had an actual, like, just a sports show up. Not a lot of mental health on the mental health show, but you did get a tip at the end.
We did discuss human behavior, though. I think that's very important.
Okay. Fine. I'll accept that.
Yeah.
So that's your mental health tip from Tua Tagovailoa. I got the name right.
Good job.
The Dolphins quarterback. Like, subscribe, follow us on all the social medias. Please leave a written review if you have made it this far into the video or the podcast. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys all for continuing to listen. As the year comes to an end, we're going to keep doing this. We're not stopping.
Yeah. And you guys, if you're not gonna rate or anything, but when you see our post, if something comes to mind that you would like us to discuss, feel free to comment, ask for a topic, ask for something that you'd like us to digest, and we'll get to it.
Absolutely. So any suggestions, we're here to take them. You can find us through our social medias and let us know. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
The previous podcast is for general informational purposes only and represented the individual opinions of Dr. Dmitry Bick, Dr. Stephen DeGraff, Dr. Suzanne Mignon, and the guests. It does not constitute the practice of medicine or other professional healthcare services and should not be taken as medical advice or an establishment of standard of care. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The content on this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.